Burrell is an advertising, marketing, and communications pioneer who founded one of the first black-owned and operated advertising firms in this country nearly 40 years ago. He is now chairman emeritus of Burrell Communications, which has finally given Mr. Burrell the time to write his first book. It's called Brainwashed, challenging the myth of black inferiority. That it is through marketing, primarily, that this brainwashing has taken hold. So for those persons watching who don't want to deal with that 400-year narrative about the brainwashing, let's make it more contemporary. Talk to me about how the media, about how marketing, about how advertising has led to this brainwashing.
It is now on automatic. Out of the movies that were nominated for the Academy Award, I'll bet you can go through half of them and find a whole slew of cues, visual and verbal cues that reinforce the idea of black inferiority, white supremacy. Which one you want to take? You want to take the blind side? The black family throws the kid away. In comes this wonderful white family who embraces this big oafish kind of kid who, you know, doesn't know anything, big gentle giant. Then we see him going into his neighborhood with this woman who is his new mother. And it's a menacing place, and she's going to get out of the car, and he grabs her. Don't get out. These are some dangerous people out there. And then you see the most menacing group of black guys that you can imagine, you know, and you see in their eyes, you see, you know, thuggishness, and you see these potential rapists, you know, and there is no positive black family image portrayed, you know, whatsoever. But you have this sharp contrast between good and bad and white and black. I'm not saying that white families haven't adopted black kids, but you know something? Black families have adopted black kids. And you have to ask yourself the question, would that be a movie? We are 41 million people strong in this country. 41 million, that is a country. That is a country like Argentina, that is a country like Spain. Now you can't tell me that with 41 million people united with $1 trillion, we can't get what we need from this government, okay? Now, to the question of being asked to be a part of the agenda, the black agenda, that we haven't been asked, we should not be waiting to be asked. That's right. We should not be waiting to be asked. That's right. We should be working on getting rid of the lack of love that we have for each other, getting rid of the lack of respect that we have for each other. It is not what white people think about us. It's not what white people do to us. It's what we think about ourselves and what we do to ourselves. That is the key, and that's what we have to deal with.
What we have to understand is that we aren't talking about ancient history. You know, we have slave narratives that were written in 1933, people who lived in slavery. So this whole idea that we're talking about ancient history, we're talking about a few generations ago. And these traditions, this inferiority that was drummed into us through the media, through propaganda, has passed down from generation to generation, just like a favorite family recipe. So we haven't, you know, if you don't address issues, if you have a cancer, if you have a tumor, you can't just wait for it to dissipate. It doesn't just go away. It gets passed down. And you have this illusion of progress, you know, or even a delusion of progress that just doesn't take away the fact that after all of the efforts that have been made, we are still, as a people, at the top of just about every bad list.
Longtime ad executive Tom Burrell knows a thing or two about the power of images. He is the founder and former CEO of Burrell Communications Group and has worked for more than 40 years promoting positive and realistic images of blacks. And now, for the first time, he's an author.
If you read the book, it becomes a guide, it becomes a dossier, it becomes a means by which you can say, look, did what I just do, does that move black people forward? Does it move us backwards?
In his new book, Burrell attempts to debunk what he calls the core issue facing African Americans today, the idea that blacks are an inferior race.
From the early posters, the old slave posters, the postcards, the newspapers, basically selling the idea of black inferiority. That's what got us there. And we need to utilize positive propaganda to get us out of that.
You really need to get this book because he talks about how today all Americans, black and white, are deluged with what you call a tsunami of words and images. I like that, a tsunami of words and images that promote the myth of black inferiority. What do you mean by that, Tom?
What I mean by that is that we were basically sold a bill of goods with false advertising going back to the beginning of this nation. It starts with the idea that we had to build up the myth of black inferiority in order to justify slavery within a democracy. Mm-hmm. Two absolutely contradictory terms. Slavery within a democracy. That's like saying I need to go out. In order to go out, I got to go inside. You know, it didn't make sense. So what they did was basically came up with this wonderful marketing idea, and that is to come up with the concept of blacks as subhuman. So if you say that all men are created equal, that leaves us out. Mm. So after you say it, then what do you have to do? You got to go out and you got to prove it. And that's the beginning of the problem, Brother Al. It's the beginning of the centuries-long marketing campaign to reinforce the superiority of the white race and the inferiority of the black race. And it's done through the media. It's done through an area that I know well, propaganda.